Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. Hey, we are in the back half of November. Many Oregon fans know what that means. Number one, we got some really important football that needs to be played over the next couple of weeks. Number two, really important storylines that are going to be emerging. We have some new targets that have emerged for the Oregon Ducks. We got some flip candidates that we got to talk about. There's one thing that we know for sure. This is the time period where Dan Lanning likes to do his best work. And I'll say this, he likes to do his best work in silence. Sometimes there won't be a ton of noise, not a lot of buzz, and all of a sudden it ramps up. That's how Dan Lanning likes to do things, and we know he likes to close right before National Signing Day. Who are the names to watch over the next couple of weeks? And we've said this a lot, and I think it certainly still pertains, and that is there is a lot of chaos in the sport. A lot of really high profile programs with high profile commitments are firing their head coaches. Dan Lanning ain't going anywhere, and he's made that very clear. The consistency that Oregon has seemed to build, I think that's really, really attractive for a lot of these young kids at the high school ranks. And on top of that, when you have freshmen like DeCorian Moore, like Jordan Davison, like Dyer Hill, like Brandon Finney, when you have the amount of freshmen that are absolute dudes for Oregon, playing your young cats, winning at a high level, guys are going to want to come play for you. We'll see how Oregon finishes here, but we got some storylines to kind of set the table, you might say. Before we do, and as always, excuse me, dealing with a little bit of a cold. Apologize to the Oregon fans. Appreciate you guys, man. We started this thing. I was thinking about this the other day. We started this thing up right around the time that Dan Lanning came to Oregon. And ever since then, it's been number one, this fan base has been awesome to the boys for multiple years at this point. But more importantly, it's been a program that's been so fun to talk about what they've done on the trail, what they've done in the portal, what they've done on the field. And the support means the world. I'm having a blast. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We have a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks. Without further ado, let's get into it now. Let's start with some new targets that we haven't talked at all about. And let's start with the number one JUCO cornerback in the country, Assad Chapman, actually on his visit today to Eugene, Oregon. Probably going to watch the game tonight against Minnesota if I were to guess. Where do you start with this? Number one, this cornerback room is already loaded as it is. I mean, you have guys like Jaleel Florence transferring out of Oregon because they don't have a path to get on the field. Jaleel Florence going to start at 90% of Power 4 programs across the country, whatever team he ends up at. That highlights how loaded this cornerback room is. I mean, Brandon Finney, forget freshman All-American. This kid's playing like a flat-out All-American. There are not many cornerbacks that I believe that are better than Brandon Finney. On the other side, you have Efe Obadegu. You have Naheem Offord waiting in the wings, you might say. It is an absolutely loaded cornerback room. Enough is never enough. Now, let's start with Assad Chapman. Assad Chapman, he fits the profile that Dan Lanning and Oregon want, right? 6'3", $190, can run. So he has the length, he has the size, and he has the speed. And if there's one thing we've learned about Oregon is they're going to bet on those three traits every day of the week when they're building that cornerback room out. You dive into his JUCO film, and the first thing that stands out, extremely imposing cornerback. It is one thing to be 6'3" and have really long arms. It's a whole nother thing to use it the right way. And Assad Chapman does, man. I mean, there's almost you might have to pull this kid back a little bit. He is about as handsy of a cornerback as you will see. But I'll say this, and I say this with all these cornerbacks, I would rather have to pull a cornerback back than try to bring physicality out of him. Same thing with Brandon Finney. Same thing with Efe Obadegu when he came out. You're talking the same thing with Assad Chapman. He's really big and knows how to use his size, and I think that's really, really damn important. We'll see how it turns out. Again, I think it'll be a tough sell when you're recruiting these cornerbacks right now. It's It's hard to sell playing time when you have Ifio and Brandon Finney and Naheem offered. But I'll say this: if Assad Chapman decides to come to Oregon, that tells you he's wired the right way. Like in an era of college football where it seems like a lot of these young cats like to run away from competition, want to go to a place that's easy to get on the football field, getting the guys who aren't afraid to go in and compete, that stuff matters. We'll see if Assad Chapman is up for it. Now, here's another name. And this kid, I didn't even know who he was 2 weeks ago. Azel Benang. And I think that's how you say it again. This is a new name for me. I got to learn how to pronounce the name. And look, if he ends up committing to Oregon, I'm going to know how to pronounce the name. 3-star cornerback from Columbia, South Carolina, was committed to Harvard, has blown up his senior season. Now, the first thing that attracts me to that is that I love betting on kids that are getting better at the sport. That was something that we talked about with Brandon Finney. Like Brandon Finney was not the at times hottest commodities early on when he was a freshman, sophomore. As a junior and senior, he was rising up the ranks. This kid has absolutely gone through the roof as a senior. You got SEC programs going after him. You got Big Ten programs going after him. Well, Oregon is also going to go after him. The first thing I like is he is kind of reminds you a little bit of Aaron Flowers. Lunatic on the football field, man. And what I mean by that is he is a bone cruncher. He is going to come downhill and he ain't the biggest cat in the world, but he plays a hell of a lot bigger than he's listed. Number two, versatile. You turn on the film, you see him play safety. You see him be a single high safety. You see him come up into the box. You see him play nickel. You see him say boundary cornerback. You can do anything you want with this kid. And when you're talking about a cornerback or a secondary room that is as loaded as Oregon's is, you want that versatility. Like go grab them and say, hey, where can we slot you in? Because we can slot you in anywhere on the football field. I think you'll end up playing nickel. Really important position. One of the quiet storylines about Oregon is Jaden Kennedy's been freaking awesome for Oregon. Now, doesn't get a ton of attention because Brandon Finney's kind of been the storyline in the back end, and Dylan Tiemann gets a lot of attention. Jaden Kennedy's been awesome. It's really important to have nickels that can be sticky in coverage, that can support the run. This kid can do it. I go check out his senior year film. Very, very intriguing cat that can do a lot of different things, but one thing he does not lack is that physicality. A little bit of a different flavor because we've seen Oregon kind of bet on guys who are 6 feet plus that go sub 11 in the 100-meter dash. Different flavor, a little bit shorter, doesn't have the crazy track and field profiles. Ball player, man. Ball player. Instincts, too. Hands on a lot of footballs. All right, let's get into the more important conversation. Not more important, but another conversation as it relates to Oregon on the recruiting trail, and that is, who are the most important flip targets? We just talked about two emerging targets that are currently not committed. They're going to be taking visits. Assad Chapman this weekend. Azel is going to be visiting at the end of November. Who are the most important names for Oregon to flip? Now, I think a lot of Oregon fans would probably talk about the Ohio State wide receivers. Caden Dixon-White and Chris Henry Jr. both down there at Mater Dei. I think, look, we ain't saying no to either of those. They're too good of football players to say no to. My question would be, is that the biggest need that Oregon has? I look at that wide receiver room and say, you obviously have DeCorian Moore. He's only going to be year 2. You have a guy in Cooper Perry who I think Oregon sneaky likes. Not a ton of people are talking about Cooper Perry. I think Oregon sneaky likes him. Don't forget about Gatlin Bear. It looks like Oregon only has 2 wide receivers coming in Messiah Hampton, Rochester, and York cat, by the way, and Jalen Lott from Texas. Remember Gatlin Bear when we broke down his commitment? He took his 2-year mission. He's going to be with Oregon next year. So you essentially have 3 top 100 wide receivers that are coming in. That's not to say we don't want Caden Dixon-White and we don't want Chris Henry. And you best believe if Brian Hartline takes a job at another school, Oregon's going to push really damn hard and probably get it done for one of them. Is he the most important? I don't think so, right? I think the most important one is Deuce Gerald's for 2 different reasons. Number one, you only have one big body interior defensive lineman committed, and that's Tony Cumberland, who I think is a good football player. To me, that's not enough. especially at that position where it's so hard to address in the portal. If you need a wide receiver, you can go get a wide receiver. There's a ton of good wide receivers that we see enter the portal every single year. It's really, really hard to find those big bodies in the middle of that defensive line. Oregon got, wouldn't say lucky, but they hit with a guy like Bear Alexander. But I also look at the depth chart and say, well, Amari Washington's probably going to the NFL. Bear Alexander quietly playing himself in to an NFL draft pick. I look at Deuce Gerald's and I say, number one, I freaking love this kid. I think he's one of the best players in the country. But number two, it's at a position where you feel like Oregon kind of needs some more bodies, some more high quality bodies. Because if there's one, and there has not been a lot of disappointments in Oregon season, if there's one disappointment, it's the year two defensive linemen haven't the step hasn't been as big as I think many of us hope for. And I'm talking about guys like Aiden Breland and guys like Tyrone Gray, Jericho Johnson. This is a position where I think Oregon needs. It's a really important position to winning national championships. It's a hard position to address in the portal. If there was one name on Oregon's board, I would like to see them get it done with. Probably Deuce Gerald's. There was a time where Oregon was going to land the commitment of Deuce Gerald's. Well, now he's committed to LSU. But LSU is a dumpster fire right now. LSU has barely even started their coaching search because they're fighting Brian Kelly in court not to pay his buyout. If I'm Dan Lanning, I'm trying to capitalize on that. Like, will they even have a coach named before national signing day? Or is Deuce Gerald's going to have to sign his papers to a program that doesn't have a head coach? If you're Dan Lanning, you're pushing hard. You're pushing really freaking hard. We'll see if they can get it done. Going to be really fun. Hey, we're going to be breaking down that Oregon-Minnesota game tonight. Going to be a late night for the boys on the East Coast, but ain't nothing I'd rather be doing Friday night. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.